worms, 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 worm
Here tonight, could you stand and introduce yourself if you are currently on the board? Okay, Eugenie.
I'm Eugenie Bacari.
I am Anna Maria, and I'm secretary.
I'm Bob.
We probably should have everyone like everyone heads on a swivel.
I have cornbread. I'll say a few words about that later.
In the back.
Oh, I'm Sonia. I'm at marketing director.
And I'm Brenda.
Everyone's going by first names. I feel weird saying Lisa Brenda. We're all on first name basis. I'm Lisa. Okay, so I'm playing a little bit of Native American flute in the background in honor of this being Indigenous Peoples Month, and we're coming up on Indigenous Peoples Day. And Bob, would you be able to come up and say a couple words about Indigenous Peoples Day?
Oh.
And the beautiful exhibit you brought?
Well, I wish it were a beautiful exhibit, but it may be helpful. One of the things that's happening is Americans, all Americans, everybody, are becoming much more aware of Indigenous people and some of the problems that they've had, not just historically, but even in today's world. So we thought we would give some attention to Indigenous Peoples Day, which is next Monday. It's October 9th, and we'll have more details about what happens. But there's an exhibit back there that says Harvest, and that has information about both Indigenous peoples, but especially crops that they grew before the Europeans showed up, and how we can still grow some of these crops in our backyards. There's information for community gardeners, all kinds of things on that exhibit. So please visit. There's cornbread, and we have two kinds of cornbread. One is gluten-free, and the other is more traditional. So you can decide which one you like. So please check out the information, and I hope Lisa can tell us what we're doing for next Monday, because it's only a week away.
No.
But it will be a wonderful event. Please join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to do, I know last year we did a land acknowledgement. I'm going to do it again. Land acknowledgement for the Enoch Davis Center. We wish to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities who lived and took stewardship of this land. We recognize that this building was built upon the indigenous homelands and resources of the Seminole, Miccosukee, and Tukavaga people, as well as their ancestors going back over 10,000 years. We acknowledge the painful history and genocide of the forced removal from their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather. This is a call for all of us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land that we inhabit. I am of the Taino Nation, and so I'm not from this land in particular, but just a little further south. The Taino Nation went from South Florida all through Caribbean to north coast of South and Central America, so all of the Caribbean. But there were people that definitely were trading in this area. So a lot of the foods that we're going to be talking about on that board are things that my people ate for many, many thousands of years. So for next week, so for Indigenous Peoples Day, which is going to be on the 9th, we were trying to solidify what we were going to do with where it's going to be. Ramona Brayboy is on her way now. She was going to make the announcement, but she's stuck in traffic. So Ramona Brayboy, she has started the Deuces Food Forest. It's in its second year. So we're going to be expanding the Deuces Food Forest to include a Native American edible area. And it's right on 22nd Avenue South and 22nd Street South and 15th Avenue South. So if you haven't been there yet, this is a great opportunity. We're going to be gathering starting at about 5 o'clock, but we won't plant until sunset. So that's very intentional. So if you want more information, go to our Facebook page. It's Sustainable Urban Agriculture Coalition, and follow the event there. So we'll go to our next slide. Okay, who is going to read the member statement? Do we have a volunteer?
I can read it.
Okay.
So as a member, you help SUAC create food systems in which communities can use more self-sustaining and regenerative practices to not only survive but thrive. So this is for all those who are members currently who support us or are considering
Can you go next slide? Oh, okay, so we have a beautiful slide here of some of the things that we're doing over at the Deuces Food Forest. So some of our members here, we have Ramona, we have Sunya, Ava, I don't think Ava's here. We have Albert and Laura, who said they couldn't make it tonight, and of course, Daniel is running around here. So I think this is just talking about opportunities for working in the community. So we have the Deuces Food Forest, and we also have Jordan Park. Deuces Food Forest is a community garden, and anybody can go and help, and there's various days that you can go. She desperately needs help watering, which is why she was coming briefly to kind of say hi, because she has to go and water before it gets dark. And then the Jordan Park is a little bit, it's because there's children, you just have to do a level 2 background check through the St. Pete Housing Authority. So if you want any more information about that, you can go onto our Facebook page as well. This is when I hate to put people on the spot.
Yeah, sure. So just some things that you can do. If you haven't already, you can become a member. You can do that online through our website, or we have a form you can fill out. You can visit our website if you haven't already. You can subscribe to our email newsletter while you're there. And we also have a Facebook group in addition to our Facebook page and Instagram page, which you can follow all for updates on what's going on.
So we asked as many people as possible to become members. I told a couple of people at the beginning that for many years we never had any challenges with membership fees. People just paid them. During COVID, we stopped asking people because we knew it was hard for everyone to donate, even that little $25 a year. We just stopped. And so now it's been 4 years since we've asked. So we've kind of been softly asking, nudging, please join. But obviously these are all free. You don't have to be a member to come to any of our meetings. You don't have to be like, if you cannot do it, it's fine. But that being said, we have insurance to pay, we have website fees and everything, so that $25 adds up. And we have about $3,000 of costs that we have just to maintain the nonprofit. So you can do the math, how many people we need to pay that $25. We also have business members that join for $100 a year, and they get to set up for free at 4 of our events, which, if you have done tabling, that's pretty good. You can also do in-kind, like Ana Maria has done, where she donates things to raffle off, and she gets to set up for free. So that helps us out to be able to get more people coming. But we really do need people to pay their dues. If it's again, it's not required. But we are going to be starting back, because the other thing is, one of the things about being a member, we have members-only events. So those are special things like special private tours and everything that we're starting back up again. We are having a full moon festival coming up in December, which is a camp out at Boyd Hill with all sorts of storytelling and cool things about the solstice coming up. So that's a members-only event. So there's going to be more and more coming up. Usually we try to do 4 a year. So please join. Thank you so much. Okay, these are... Somebody else say something.
I can keep going here.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, we already kind of touched on these. We got Jordan Park. If you want to become a level 2 volunteer, you can help us with that. We have Indigenous Peoples Day next Monday. And we also do some stuff at 15th Street Farm, so I threw it on there as well.
Thank you so much, Sunya. And I want to give a shout out to Sunya. She is a board member, but she has Sunya Creative, and as a business owner, she just volunteers to do all of this amazing marketing, our website, our social media and everything. And she's gone way above the $100 requirement. So please, look at her services as well. But I just wanted to give a shout out, because this is amazing. I haven't even seen this yet. Thank you so much, Sunya. So that's our board. I think essentially so that's our board. So yeah, I'm sorry. I already a few people aren't here, so myself, Ana Maria, Samantha Harris. Actually, we have a proxy for Samantha. Do you want to just introduce yourself really quick?
I'm Andrew. I do social media for the Tampa Bay Holiday Festival, February 17th, 2024. That's it. I'm standing in for my mom today.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Samantha's our treasurer, and she does bookkeeping for a living, so I bless her that she does it for us as well. But they are, Tampa Bay Collard Green Festival is a very valued partner. And we do the sustainable ag. Who has been to the Collard Green Festival? There's a lot of people that have it. That's amazing. Okay, so we're going into our 7th year, and it's in South St. Pete. And for that festival, it's really exploding this year. This year, a personal friend of mine, Adrian Miller, is going to be our speaker. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is I think 3-time James Beard Award winner now. He's an author. He's called the Soul Food Scholar. So he specializes in soul food, and he writes a book about the president's kitchen cabinet and the black chefs of the White House. So we're bringing him in from Colorado, and so pretty exciting about that. And we have a 3-day event. Sorry, forget that. It's not announced yet. Sorry, Andrew. Watch the social media for the Tempe College Green Festival. We have a big announcement coming up. Okay, these are how you can get. Do you want to do this one or
Sure.
Maria? Want to do?
You go for it, because I'm gonna present.
Well, we'd love for you to become a member. I think it's a really great group. I've enjoyed being in it. And there's a lot of opportunities to volunteer all around, not just Pinellas County, even other areas. And the board is fun. We're all really nice. So if you have the time and you'd like to, or you have a skill you'd like to share, that'd be great. We'd love to meet you and talk to you.
Business member? Do you want to do business member?
No, I think
Okay.
we know who's gonna do business member. Please talk about your awesome business and your roots.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. So, I'll read the slide. If you have a business, you can do business member perks. You have the ability to take part in SUAC events monthly, and see all the special presentations. I work for Lombriz Roja Design. We are a native plant nursery. We do edible plants as well. We do landscaping, everything in between. We also teach classes and stuff. Anna Maria is teaching a more extensive worm farming class, a little bit towards the end of the month, or is it next weekend?
Next Sunday. So
Next
it's gonna be
weekend.
a follow-up class to this one. Today, it's gonna be more about the anatomy of the red wiggler worm and the sexual reproduction of the worm and how to put together the worm farm. But then on Sunday, I'm gonna talk about how to care for your worm farm in Florida environments and also how to deal with pests without using chemicals. So Sunday's class will be a continuation to today's class. Difference, of course, is that on Sunday there is a fee. It's $30 for the class. Today there's no fee. So please continue.
Yeah, but as a business member, you can get a logo on the SUAC website, which is good because whenever all of our members and exploring members explore that website, they get the link to see what businesses are a part of SUAC. Yeah, so that's a hot link to your website. And then you get one social media shout out as well. And then 4 individuals from the company receive individual membership benefits. So I'm Savannah. I'm one of those. I like to come to the monthly meetings and different events to network with different people in my community. Yeah, and I think someone mentioned also tabling as well as a part of it.
And if I can add, actually the way that we met Savannah was at the College Green Festival a couple years ago. So everything goes full circle in this group.
I'm also an Eckerd College graduate from the farm. So
Which is how I met her originally.
yeah, I've got lots of little community ties to the agriculture community.
Thank you for that.
No raffle today, sorry guys.
Well, there's no raffle?
Well, I'll do a random.
No.
I'll ask some questions, and at the end, what I'm going to be giving away is the worm farm. It's without the worms, just because I want to make sure that people also go through the class on Sunday or through some type of learning of how to care for the worm farm. But at the end of the night, what I'm going to be putting together tonight, it's going to be giving away.
I think we can still do a raffle because I don't think you knew that she was going to give away a worm farm.
Okay.
Yeah, we also have some fancy shovels that I bought at the store that we can give away too.
Awesome. The more, the merrier. Perfect.
Yay! Okay, welcome our presenter, Anatomia Quintero.
So while we switch to the other presentation, my name is Anatomia Quintero. I was born in Colombia in South America. I speak Spanish, that's my first language. I am fluent in English, and I have also learned some Mandarin Chinese. I love just different cultures. That's the reason why I went to school to USF St. Petersburg to get a degree in geography. I got a concentration of conservation of society and the environment. I chose that over the route of cartography just because even though I think it's important, it's really not what I felt was my calling. So while I was going to USF, I was part of the honors program, and one of the requirements to graduate was for me to write a thesis, and my thesis was directed by the geography professor, the director, Dr. Christopher Mindel, and what we worked on was on people's political leaning and their perspective on consumption of organic food, recycling, and usage of solar energy. And I did a survey with over 100 students of USM. I also did background research on both political platforms, and it basically really showed that the political leaning does not really affect people's perspective on these subjects. If anything, more conservative and Republicans were more supportive than Democrats. I know that it's all over the place with research. In the past, research showed that Democrats were really the ones that were supporting those subjects more, so I think over time, what it also shows is that it keeps going back and forth between Democrat and Republicans. The reason why I picked that is because I think it's unfortunate that I have to pick a political party in my card. I think that sometimes I believe more in people's ideas than their political party. So while I was doing that research, some of the background that I did was in organic food management, was waste management. And I realized that there was a gap in responsible waste management. There has been all different kinds of waste management all throughout the country because it varies per state. And one of the things that was even less talked about was food waste management. There has been some projects out there of just collection of food scraps and turning that into organic fertilizer. But here in the state of Florida, and specifically in St. Petersburg, it's kind of all over the place. So while I was writing my thesis, I was also the vice president of the garden club at USF. And we turned a dirt lot into the food forest that we have there. Unfortunately, it's not in the same shape that it was before. I wish it looked better, but it's still there. So while I was there, I took care of the worms, and we purchased a worm farm, and ever since I started my own business of worm farming. I have been doing it on the side since I was attending school. My income has varied mostly on the time that I have invested in the business, but it's really, really rewarding. I'm very happy that I was able to be part of SUAC, and now that I'm here, having the chance to talk to you guys a little bit about worm farming. So last year I did a worm farming presentation that is already familiar with, but basically what I talked about last year was how to care for your worms and what you need to feed and what type of adjustments you need to make with different environmental changes. Even though I know it doesn't snow in Florida, it does drop fairly cold a couple times a year. And there's also some pests that are, or invasive species that are only assigned to Florida. And I went over all of that last year. So I am going to go over all that information on Sunday at Living Roots if anybody is interested on joining us. Everything is either on my Facebook page or on the Facebook page for Living Roots, so certainly take a look at that. And then with that being said, if you can please, so that's my social media. That's perfect. So I do have a YouTube channel, and I also have an Instagram channel, an Instagram account, I mean. It used to have a lot more followers, but unfortunately, I shouldn't have logged into my Instagram in Colombia because they deleted my account. They thought somebody else was logging in, so I started again. It's totally okay. There is some stuff in there, just not as much as before. But most of the stuff that I'm trying to put that's instructional, it's on YouTube anyways. And certainly, if you have any ideas or anything that you would like to see, I'm more than happy to add a video. You will not really see my face in the video because it's just more about the worms. So, next slide. So this is one of the images that I've actually been showing at one of the schools in Johns Hopkins Middle School, where she's the teacher, and I've been going with Lisa over there. We've had the kids interact and get familiar with the worms. And the reason why I put them in the screen while I talk about the other two subjects is for you to just get familiar with how simple it is, the anatomy of the worm. It is very different from us from the standpoint that it is full-blooded, so similar to snakes. It does not regulate its own temperature. We have to adjust the temperature of the environment for the worm to survive. They also have 5 parts, so I like to think that they're 5 times more thoughtful than we are. They also do not have a brain. They have a gland. It's called a cerebral ganglia, and that starts over here on the top, and it goes all the way down through the whole body of the worm, and it acts as a nervous system. Also, the worm does not breathe through lungs. It doesn't have lungs like we do. It breathes through their skin. That's why I have gloves on, because anytime that I handle the worms, I always protect the worms against anything that I might have in my hands. A lot of times you think, well, I'll just sanitize my hands and then I'll work with the worms. But unfortunately, the rubbing alcohol that you may have on your hands might harm the worms. So that's why it's just better to put some sterile gloves. I sometimes do 2 layers of gloves where I place these ones, and actually these regular garden gloves, I have them over there, but I put those over these just because these ones sometimes rip. It's not a big deal, but in your worm farm, you will have spiders, you will have centipedes, mice, all these different animals that you just want to avoid touching. Just more jumping than anything else. It's not going to harm you, but just wearing the gloves creates also that peace of mind, at least for me, that the worms are protected, and also that I'm not going to. The only one that sometimes releases liquid is the centipede when it gets a little stressed out, and it might create a little bit of a rash, but it hasn't really happened to me. I just read about it online, so that's another reason why I wear my gloves. And then this is the most special and important part, which I will talk about later on. The flagellum is where they keep the reproduction organs, because they're all hermaphrodites. They all have male and female reproductive organs. And even though they have both, they do need a partner to reproduce. They can't really reproduce themselves. And what is best about the reproduction that I will talk about later is they do have to put their flagellums next to each other. So because they're awesome, they have to 69 to be able to exchange their organs, and they create and develop the cocoon where the baby worms are developed. Okay, so now moving a little bit away from the anatomy of the worm, really quickly, I just wanted to point out the difference between composting and vermicomposting. Does anybody compost at home? Perfect, great. So how long does it take you for you to have your final product of your compost? Is it several weeks, several months?
Depends on what I'm doing.
Perfect.
Oak leaves take forever.
Oak leaves take forever, which is, I'm glad you said that, because usually for leaves, what I recommend, especially if you're using for bedding for your worm farm, some people put it in a 5-gallon bucket and you just use a grass cutter in the bucket and it shreds the leaves. That way, since they're in a smaller size, they will decompose much faster than if you keep them full size. So with composting, it can take between 6 to 9 months, and you are pretty much the giant worm farm that's turning that pile, because it does need some oxygen. And when all that heat that can go up to 150 degrees, it's cooking. The good thing is that it can kill some pathogens, which unfortunately with vermicomposting, because it does not get as hot, there's no guarantee that all pathogens are going to be killed. And also the difference is the type of microbes. As you guys can see, the composting has thermophilic microbes, which is microbes that thrive in high temperatures. And vermicomposting is mesophilic microbes, which thrive in lower temperatures. So again, you also have a completely different grouping of microbes. each one of the decomposing processes. And then with vermicomposting, it's much faster because there's many different types of worm farms out there. I know that a fellow worm farmer from the city, Albert, he does large scale worm farming. Most of his worm farms are bathtubs that are more for larger scale. While I focus on is in smaller urban worm farms because I'm more driven to teaching the homeowner or somebody that's head of a household that creates food waste from their family on diverting that and keeping that away from your trash. So the types of worm farms that I use, it's called a tray stack system. And the tray stack system, it's pretty much kind of what it says. It's just a group of trays that go on top of each other. There's many different brands of worm farms out there that you can look up anywhere. There's used worm farms on Marketplace, there's Craigslist, there's brand new worm farms, and they range on all kinds of prices. From brand new, a worm factory 260, which is the ones that I usually work with, it can start around 130 or 170, depending on the package that you buy. Then there's much larger worm farms, like one from New Zealand that I will have at home, and that's about $500. It's just definitely much larger. And then besides the ones that you can buy that are already made, you can make your own worm farm, which is what we're gonna do at the end. You just do a demonstration so you can get knowledgeable on which tools you need to get and hopefully join us on Sunday for that second follow-up class, or you can do your research online. You can watch YouTube video. I know the class from last year that I taught for SUAC. It's on the YouTube channel, so you're more than welcome to watch that. So there's many different places where you can gather the information. So please do the next one. Thank you so much. So now going back to the anatomy and the reproduction of the worm. So another cool thing about the anatomy of the worm is that it has all these different rings throughout the body, and all those rings are like individual muscles. It could be up to 120 rings. It's actually part of the genus Animus, which means ring. And all of them, like I was saying, contract. So when I have a worm in my hands, it usually moves front and back. It doesn't only move forward. It's really once you have it out of its environment, because it's sensitive to the light, it's just gonna probably move all over the place because it's trying to find that shape, like you said, because of that sensitivity. And then on top of that, there's also some bristles that go all throughout the worm that I can't really see them just by looking at the worm. You do need a microscope to see that, and that also helps the worm rip. That's why usually when you see a bird trying to eat a worm from the ground, the bird is struggling with the worm, and the worm it's just ripping its line in the earth. It's because it's using all these muscles and all those bristles. So usually the clitoris, it's closer towards the head part of the worm, and then the food goes all the way down to anus. I'm gonna describe the different parts that it goes to. So it starts with the mouth, the food, then it goes through the pharynx, then the esophagus, the gizzard, the intestine, and then finally to the anus. So while it goes through all that digestion, the worm is adding humic acid, it's adding all these different microbes and all the different bacteria that is good for the final product, which is the worm castings that you're using as fertilizer for your plants. If you want to go more in depth on what you feed your worms, there is research out there. I don't remember the name of the university, but I am familiar with the university that did specific research on a specific feed that they give to worm farms, and then they got a final product with specific NPK ratio, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium ratio to use as fertilizer for their plants. So for me, that is probably the next step of what I'm gonna do. I'm not only gonna adjust the feed of my worms, I'm probably also gonna get other worms. There's about, I think, 4 or 5 different kinds of the popular types of worms that do the vermicomposting. It's just red wigglers are the ones that are most, that are strongest to temperature changes. That's why I have the red wigglers. If it gets too cold and too hot, they're not as sensitive. And they also stay on the top few inches of the soil. So for you to control worm population, what matters the most is also surface area. So the bigger the surface area, the more amount of worms you have. And they also self-regulate their population, which I think it's very smart, and it's something that we need to so going back now to the reproduction section, as I said before, and this kind of explains, there's the worm with the clitellum, and here they're kind of getting together to set up and put their clitellum next to each other. Now, what's also very impressive is that they do that between 18 and 24 hours. So I think they are very good at sharing their love for each other for that many hours. And then after they separate, then a little cocoon develops, like I was saying, right over here. And then the cocoon, it's gonna have the little baby worms inside. So the worms can develop up to 3 cocoons per week. And every 30 days, you can have a new, pretty much, population of worms. What's most important is the temperature, the environment that you keep for your worms. There's a few ingredients of food that you can add in there that I usually keep my worms fed with. That is watermelon, banana peels, avocado, corn cobs, and also shredded paper. As long as you keep those ingredients in there, the worms will be very, very happy, and they will be reproducing. And now, does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff that I've done so far? No? Okay, awesome, perfect.
I have a question. The cocoons, are they just out in the soil, or do they have a special place that they put them?
Great question. So they're all over the place. If the worms are reproducing, which I brought some for you to look at, and the worms, once, for example, since I have been removing worms because I have been selling worms and they are self-regulating their population, they are reproducing and leaving the cocoons everywhere. So when I do that next removal of worms and worm castings, it takes longer because I'm also removing the cocoons. And the cocoons also change color over time. Once you get a brand new cocoon, the color is whitish and lightish, then it turns yellow, and then towards the end is brownish, and you can see the little baby worm inside, and the worm just comes out, and it's maybe half an inch, less than that. Then it will grow 40 to 60 days later, it will become an adult, and it develops the clitellum. So the younger worms do not have the clitellum develop, and they can't reproduce. It's the adult ones that have the clitellum, the only ones that reproduce and develop the cocoons. I have experimented before of harvesting cocoons and keeping them on my fridge, and then put them out in the worm farm, and some of them did hatch. Several of them survived keeping them in the fridge, just because you never know what can happen to your worm farm. And going back to the type of worm farm that I use, the tray stack system, the reason why I use it, it's because it keeps the population of each level separate from each other. So you can see it like a condo for my worm farms. So in a penthouse, where I keep the food, and then everybody else, that if there's a surge, they're in trouble. For some reason, whoever got in the water, I don't have to worry about everybody else, because everybody on the penthouse is still there and it's doing fine. So that's kind of why I like having the tray stack system instead of one long just tray or bin or tub or whatever. once something happens in that surface area, you might be out of line. So, perfect. So that's, there's only one more slide. I just thought that was, maybe the last one is finished, but I just thought this was a very, very cool graphic. That's something what the worm looks like inside. I think that, I mean, honestly, the first time that I saw worm was in that movie Tibet with Brad Pitt, where everybody is saving the worms in that scene. I don't know if anybody has seen that movie, but it just moved me a lot how these monks were being so sensitive and just so thoughtful with such a just small little animal. And then Da Vinci did say, I'm sorry, not Da Vinci, Darwin said that worms are the intestines of the soil, and one of the big works that it's not very known from Da Vinci that I definitely encourage everybody to take a look at. He wrote a whole thing about earthworms and what worms do. That was, I think, the very last thing that he wrote about. And he just, he just goes on and on about all the amazing things that worms do. So, I mean, as you can see here, it's the brain, and I mean, it's just so much for me to name. It's just really mostly for you to kind of pick a key. And just once you see a worm on the ground, maybe next time you'll pick it up and throw it in the grass, like I did. Just because they're just very, very helpful animals in your garden. A healthy garden is a garden full of worms. And so the next thing that I'm going to go over, which I'm going to get, and then the sources, my helper Daniel is going to help me put the worm farm together in front of everybody. Anybody can show me about 7. Perfect. So, So this over here, it's just a regular tote that I got that I think this one's a 10 gallon. You can use 30 gallon, you can use really any size. The main thing that you want to add to any container is some type of drainage. So what I recommend is getting any type of spigot. I got this at Ace Warehouse, and it's just a water cooler spigot that has the 2 ends. And then to make this hole over here, I was very lucky to have this tool that I've never seen in my life, but I actually had in the house.
Step drill.
What's that?
Step drill.
Thank you. So I first made the small hole because I realized that it won't pierce this big. So I just pierced small hole first. Then I added this one, pierced the bigger hole until I found the size for this tool right here. And I added. And the main reason why I'm putting that, it's because as everybody maybe has been aware, I don't know, for school we had to do that field trip to the landfill. Did anybody do a field trip to the landfill? No biggie, if you didn't, it was probably perfect, there we go. Probably just because I went to school for geography, we did that one. But when you go there, they talk about the leachate. The leachate is pretty much trash juice. It's just it rains and there's runoff water from the trash. That's your leachate. There is a little bit of controversy in different states of the country about using leachate, which I think is really interesting. I stand in the position that leachate could have pathogens. So the leachate I do not use on any of my edible plants because since it could have those pathogens, what I use the leachate with is with plants that are not edible, like succulents, palm trees, bushes, pine trees, any tree that you're not gonna consume. I pour all my leachate over there. Now, if I wanna pour some type of liquid nutrients to my plants, what I make is worm tea. And I will talk a little bit more about how to make that during the class. But worm tea, it's using the actual worm castings and mixing them with water, adding some oxygen, and then adding that to your plant. So you do put those, you do put that product on your edible plants. So after I drill that bowl, I'm not gonna do it right now, but I just wanted to show everybody that I also do a layer of holes right around over here to the top. And then it's up to me, and it's up to you also if you want to put a second or third layer. So you just buy 2 or 3 more of this, and then you create that tray stack system that I'm talking about. So now what Daniel's gonna help me do is feed the worm farm, and I'm just gonna show you a easy example of how you would feed your worm farm. So the first thing that we do is collect our food scraps. So Daniel, if you could please throw those in here very carefully. There we go. Boom. Perfect. So that's a bunch of jackfruit and just food that I've been collecting during the week. Then the next thing that we're gonna add is our eggshells, because the worms need eggshells to be able to digest the food for grit. So there we go. Yeah. Much better. So if you could please grab a handful and just put it right over there.
Do you crush those eggshells?
Yes, very good question. So the eggshells, you can either use a mortar at home, or you can use a coffee grinder and grind them just in a much smaller size and then pour them in there. Some people also use coffee grounds for the, thank you.
Quick question, do you have to grind it, like?
Yeah, I'm lazy.
Yes, well, it's preferably just because, since like I was saying, the worms don't have teeth, they're more of a, actually somebody in the class said it earlier, it's like a leech, they're more of a suction. So it just helps speed up the process. You don't have to, you can, throw them the way that they are, but it just helps speed up the process the same way that people sometimes cut the food in smaller pieces. It just helps speed up the process, so that you definitely don't have to do it. Just like also some people like to bake the eggshells because they think that by baking the eggshells they're killing the bacteria in the eggshells. I haven't done that, but there's some people that do that. You prefer to do that, you're of course also more than welcome to do that. So then the next thing that we're gonna add is the bedding, and today for bedding I just have some untreated mulch. So if you could please add that in there, Daniel. Perfect. Awesome. Great.
Ana Maria?
And the last 2 tools.
Ana Maria? Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, she just said, I was wondering what the name was. She said
Yep.
untreated mulch.
So, untreated mulch is different types of wood that are cut in smaller pieces. There's many different places where you can get the untreated mulch. There is untreated mulch that is free from the city. I unfortunately do not recommend that type of mulch because it could, thank you. The untreated mulch from the city, unfortunately, sometimes it's really contaminated. It has nails, screws, plastic, cement. I've gone to several sites and I just haven't really found a site that has good untreated mulch, which is really disappointing. So I have to purchase my mulch. I know that you guys sell mulch, correct? So if anybody wants to buy some mulch, you're more than welcome to. Go ahead.
So is it called untreated mulch, and then what is it treated with when you find the mulch? Like, what would you be treated with to make it treated?
I'm not sure, maybe.
So there can be different types of, this would be not, excuse me, pine bark mulch. Pine bark mulch is a lot thicker, and that's not one of the treated ones, but the treated varieties, you may see like dyed cypress mulch.
Okay.
So if you see that red mulch that's used places, there's black as well. So you're looking for like the brown natural mulch. We carry Melaleuca mulch, which is good because it's from the invasive Melaleuca tree. So that's a source to actually use that up. But there's cypress mulch that you can use. You may even be able to use pine bark fines, which are a lot smaller pieces. I don't know if the pH of that might affect them at all though. But yeah, we sell a lot of different bag mulches, and in the future we're looking to sell like bulk mulch by the pile, where you can just like scoop it up.
And what is your company called again?
Living Roots Eco Design.
Living,
Roots Eco Design, and our website is linked on the SUAC page.
okay, thanks.
So, about the mulch, I use a company called, or not a website called Chip Drop,
Oh, perfect.
and, I mean,
Do they
basically,
drop tricks off to you? Yeah, because I've talked to some people, they said they never do.
it's hit and miss. The best thing is to develop a relationship with one of the people who you get lucky with, and then try to get them consistently to drop by, when they're, give you a call when they're in the area.
Perfect, thank you
But
so
I
much
get
for sharing.
tons of chips. Question about the Melaleuca. It's related to
The tea tree?
yeah. Is that bad for worms or?
Not to my knowledge.
What's the pH?
So that, I don't know the pH of the Melaleuca, but
It's got a tea tree resin in it.
Okay, so one important thing is the pH that you keep on your worm farm. So as long as it's between 6 and 8, you should be fine. So I know that there's, thank you, Marty. I know that there's some types of wood out there that are,
It's bad.
yes, that are bad. So definitely you want to be a little bit careful about what you use for your bedding. And the other instruments that I also recommend to get for your worm farm are a thermometer and a pH meter. And the thermometer, I usually always keep it inside of my worm farm just so I check the temperature. And then the pH meter I usually use at the end when I have my vermicast, which I will get these turned into vermicast in about a month.
Is horse manure invented?
You can use horse manure as a feed. It wouldn't be a bedding because that will be the nitrogen. The only thing is that the horse manure, since it's hot, you want to wait until it cools down, and you want to make sure that it's also horse manure, because I've read out there that sometimes cow manure, since they treat the cows sometimes with certain things, that can be transferred down to the worms, and then your final product will have, I don't know if it is the warmers or something of that kind.
Ivermectin maybe?
Probably. I know that there's certain things, so if you get manure, you just want to make sure if it is from either a cow or a horse, go towards the horse, or I know that rabbit manure, it's very, very high in nitrogen, and also goat. I've heard that goat manure, it's also very, very good to do worm farming. So that concludes so far the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
What are the shredded papers for? What's the goal again? You mentioned-
So, great question, thank you for asking. So, the shredded paper, the purpose of it is to serve as bedding for the worm farm. It's very important that if you're using shredded paper, it's black and white. Try to not get shredded paper that has colored ink, because the colored ink can harm the worms. Nowadays, most ink is soy-based, so because it's soy-based, it does not harm the worms. But the purpose of that is to add bedding for the worms, because just on your regular composting pile, you have your nitrogen and carbon ratio. Your nitrogen is the food and your carbon. It's your bedding material, so it will be the same thing in this case. The shredded paper will serve as the carbon that is the bedding for your nitrogen and carbon ratio on the worms. The difference is that the paper can be eaten by the worms. The mulch, the worms can't really digest it.
What happens if I don't add any carbon to my worm
It's
farm?
totally okay, just as long as you put some type of bedding, because you need that nitrogen and carbon ratio. So if you just put food, the worms wouldn't really have space to burrow through. It will be just a bunch of food there, so it would be uncomfortable for them. So that's why whatever you pick, you want to make sure you do a ratio. Any other questions?
What is the ratio?
50-50, just as long as the food is covered by the bedding, you're good.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been composting, it has not been very successful.
That's quite all right.
Yeah, it's in it's like a raised, composter and you turn it.
Okay.
And then I've been doing this for like over a year. It doesn't seem like it's broken down. I mean, somewhat, but I'm thinking it should be further along, so would it help if I had? Like, would I have to start the process, like?
I used my incomplete compost today, and the worms turned it into beautiful black stuff in a very short order.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's also different products like Bokashi brand or compost accelerators that you can add that have like different microorganisms in it that help speed up that process.
Also, if I do it on the ground, it goes faster.
I personally do perfect composter, so I do the Bokashi style, where I do like a pickle all the way through, essentially by adding the starter a little bit and then I add
every day.
Yeah, I use old compost and mix it
Oh, the
with
top layer.
with the new compost
Oh,
and
keep
layers.
the top layer.
They're going
Makes it
on
quicker.
the top to
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay, so if I'm adding mulch,
Obviously, I have one pump system, so
yeah. It's always like mulch, food, mulch.
Yes, and it makes it all together.
It's together.
Makes it all together. Because if you just only layer it, it can create that heat.
Okay.
And that heat starts to harm the water. So whatever you do, makes it all.
After I get the castings out.
Yes. How do you keep fire ants from getting in there?
That's a tough one. I've been dealing with ants for many, many months and they're the smartest ones out there. So right now I will go in depth on that on Sunday, but depending on your setup of your worm farm, what type of setup do you have?
I mean, it's just it's like
Something
that.
like this? Okay, so the first thing that I tried was water because a lot of people out there said, you know, they can't swim. Well, they can swim. I've seen them swim. They will swim. So that one didn't work as much as I did. I'm using that in combination of other things. I'm also using cinnamon powder. I'm also using orange peels that I'm in a way shredding and spreading out. And I'm also using boric acid because they bring the boric acid back. But I have not been able to completely eliminate the ants or just keep them away. What I've been very successful is creating a layer. But please go ahead.
Do you know if diatomaceous earth harms
Oh,
ants?
thank you for that. So that's a good one. I've definitely also used diatomaceous earth. The only thing is that, unfortunately, Florida weather, it rains. So if you keep your worm outside, the diatomaceous earth, once it gets wet, unfortunately, it doesn't really work. When I have mixed it with the worms and the worm farm, it doesn't affect the worms. A few people were a little bit afraid, so I did experiment at first because since they're supposed to just cut through everything, fortunately, since the worms they don't have any type of shell, it didn't hurt them. What it did is that it clumped up the vermicast. So instead of having this easy, loose type of product, I just had this kind of clumps of vermicast. I don't know how it affected the final product because I only did it for a short period of time, but it had to alter at least the texture of the product. I don't know if once you have that and add it to your plants, if that's gonna affect any other critters that might try to get in there because it has that diatomaceous earth, since it doesn't decompose as easy. It's made out of corals. Yeah, it's something that's there forever. So even though it is useful, it's something that you have to do repetitively and you have to be super diligent. It does help control the population. So it is a great.
It's really light, it's really fine. Don't let that stuff get in your eyes.
Or lungs.
Great. Yeah, you don't, because it'll scratch the hell out of your eyes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Of course, you're welcome. Anybody else has any other questions?
Folic acid.
Okay, perfect, awesome. So then the last thing that I have is the worms that while Lisa keeps talking, I'm gonna pass them along. You're welcome to.
I'm just gonna start putting the projector back up. Hey, okay. So yes, so that is our presentation. So big hand for Anna Maria. Thank you. So we have a bunch of special guests, but we have an extra special guest tonight, Miss E. Yay! So Miss E, come on up here.